Hey, what's up? So if you hadn't noticed, I prefer to start the interviews by just letting you drop in on a part of the conversation that I think is interesting and let you listen from there. In this particular case, I really felt it best to give this guest a little bit of context. So the guest name is Hugh Sadlier. He's a hypnotist who has been practicing for over 30 years, and he's worked with thousands of patients. He just recently released this book called The Healing Power of Hypnosis, and he was introduced by a mutual friend. And I really wanted to interview him due to my own interest in hypnosis, and actually is something that I have done before. We didn't end up getting into it just because there's so much to cover. So we kind of stay away from the whole quitting smoking and that kind of thing, and we try to dive a little deeper into past lives and things like that. So there's some pretty interesting parts of this conversation, and Hugh is very well versed in what he does. I also found it to be very interesting that in his 80s, he's still pursuing goals. I feel like anyone who's writing a book in their 80s has something they want to say, and I was really interested to try to uncover as much of that as I could. As somebody in their 40s, I thought there was a lot that I could gain from our conversation, and I have to say that I did. A lot of confirmation, a lot of validation, and yeah, we'll just let it get on. So hope you guys enjoy it. Please listen to the end, and hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Peace, peace. How did you enjoy doing your video series that you did?
Well, I really liked it once I got going. You know, there's just and there were a lot of things that I wanted to get in on the videos, and there were certain parts that I didn't want to miss out on. So yeah, it just took a little while to get into the flow, I guess you'd say.
So I did listen to them all.
Did you?
Yeah, I listened to them all. Some of them a couple times. If you had to pick one of them, and it was the only one that you could maybe show someone, or if you could only pick one that you want everyone to see, which one would it be?
Interesting. They're also interesting in their own way.
And they're all very different.
But I think it probably would have been the one about the woman who said that she had cancer. She was 55 years old, and it was an unusual form of cancer, so unusual that the local doctors didn't know what to do with it, and they were dealing with doctors in Washington, D.C.
Do you remember what kind of cancer it was?
I don't remember the name, no, but it just said it was very rare. I mean, like 20 cases in the country in a year or something like that, you know. And so she called, and I said, you know, I'd be happy to have a session with her and see what we might be able to do. And so she came, and this was the first unusual part. She came, and she's 55 years old, and she just looked like she was 80. She would just look worn down. And I think the reason was that 10 months prior, she had been told by a doctor that she had 1 year to live.
Oof.
So
20 months prior.
10 months prior. So she's got 2 months left.
Yeah.
But from that sentence, if you want to think of it as a sentence.
Yes.
And so that's where she was. She was just, she was down. She was sad looking. She was, wasn't dressed very comfortably. And I just felt sorry for her when I first saw her. But as we got to know each other and we started working on it with hypnosis, she was able to make some changes. And they were slow, but by the fourth, we had 6 sessions in all.
I was going to ask.
By the fourth session, after that, she was doing so well that she went out to a store up in Bangor, in Freeport, and she bought 4 new pantsuits. Now, she'd been working, commuting to Boston and back from Portland.
Yeah.
And so that was a great sign of progress because she was thinking about going back to work.
Well, and she was, I guess, if she stopped and bought 4 new outfits, right, then no one buys clothes without looking forward to wearing them. Right. And feeling like there's going to be a reason to wear them, and that there's going to be some future in which they get to wear these clothes and feel good about wearing them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a big step. Yeah.
So it was really a massive change from that person who first walked in the door to where she got to after 4 sessions. And we had 6 sessions total. But at the end of 4, she was given a reprieve from chemotherapy.
Oh, wow.
Because her platelets had stabilized, and you know, they just said, whoa, we're going to take a break here. So we had 2 more sessions, and she reached to what I thought was just a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And yeah, so
those stories you had were after 4 sessions, and that was before even the final 2 sessions.
That was the 4 sessions were the pantsuit. That was a big step. But then we had 2 more after that to just really just kind of reinforce everything.
Mm-hmm. And so what? I guess I'm curious. So what's done at that point to kind of reinforce everything? Whereas not to say I don't agree with it, but I guess I'm just interested in like what steps you take to reinforce that change. Once that change is finally implemented, or you really see tangible progress.
Yep.
What are the steps that you take to reinforce those and lock those in?
Okay, I'm going to backtrack just a little because
that might put us ahead of ourselves a little bit, but we'll jump around a bit.
Okay,
people will have to follow. Yeah.
Well, early in my practice, I was working with an elderly gentleman, and what I was taught to do as a hypnotist was to give lots of direct suggestions to the person. The idea that the suggestions are going to be consistent, and they were going to convince the subconscious mind that it needed to do what the person wanted to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And with this particular person, it just didn't work. And he came 2 sessions, and it didn't work at all. And so I gave him his money back, and I was just surprised because I hadn't even thought about that. But as I thought about it, what I began to realize was that I think probably even today most hypnotists are taught that way. There may be exceptions, but I think in general they're taught to give lots of direct suggestions.
Right.
Now, that will work with some people, but it won't work with some people because everyone's different. They have their own set of feelings and experiences, and they just may not be able to accept that. It's maybe too strong for them to.
And also, like, that sounds like a really fuzzy ethical line when you're, especially in a state as I understand hypnosis to be, if you're just kind of directing so much or feeding suggestions, then is it possible to like even completely innocently, right, to kind of implant memories or things like that maybe shouldn't be there, or is there an ethical line there if they're just kind of maybe feeding suggestions to a person? And it might not be surprising that someone with maybe a certain level of wherewithal just won't accept it.
I'll say that in my training, that never came up.
Sure, yeah,
this
isn't
seems to be
accuse...
the approach that's been used for a long time.
Yeah,
and so people don't ask that question, I assume.
Okay,
I didn't know enough to ask it.
Okay,
but yeah. So anyway, the short of that was that I started doing a little more research and wondering and thinking, and I finally decided that if each person is their own individual, and we have a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's not going to work for some, well, maybe there's another way that could work.
Yep.
So
there's a quote from your book that kind of stood out to me, and that was, so you were talking about going to a workshop and talking about how you'd spend countless hours in these workshops and countless hours or countless I'm not sure how many years in the field at this point, but you felt like an island in the sea of non-resonating beliefs.
Yeah. Well, this new quandary and thought and something to be explored started, and I was going in my own direction.
Is that the time you were talking about?
Well, I was getting to that, but I was going in my own direction for 11 years.
Okay.
But during those 11 years, because I wasn't getting any support from going to all kinds of workshops and seminars at this national conference.
Now I see.
So and I was wondering all the time, am I okay? Because I created a process.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it my 4 R's of hypnosis. And it's very simple, but this is possible with hypnosis, but it's possible because by asking the subconscious mind for its help, it's very willing to respond.
Mm-hmm.
But the other approach is just kind of telling it, there's no leeway here. This is what's going to happen. But by asking it, it's really amazing how much information could just pour out of that subconscious mind, because it has a record of your whole life. So I went for 11 years reading, not finding anyone else who was doing it exactly the way I was doing it. But my 4 R's are to, one, you have to recognize the roots of the problem.
So recognize.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the second one is to release the impact of whatever those roots are on the person. You can't erase memories, but you can actually think of taking out the impact of it on you.
Yep.
So that's the second one. You release it.
So I might slow these down a little bit just so that they can really land with the viewer or the listener. Just because I want anyone who listens to this to be able to really kind of understand the framework. And because I feel like when we talked about it, even just understanding that framework enough, even just kind of having that to kind of as a kind of a tool in the back of your head could be helpful.
Yeah.
And so the first one is to recognize. So recognize the root of whatever issue it is that you're dealing with.
Exactly. And there may be a number of roots in one issue.
Okay. So yeah, it's not necessarily just going to be one thing.
We can ask you, like, would it want to give us a number that would represent how many aspects are there to that particular issue? And it's usually very willing to do that, or maybe an offshoot of something like that.
So you can even just ask it how many things?
Absolutely. You know, it's like this amazing computer. You ask the question, like AI these days, right? You ask the computer, bang, here's the answer coming right back.
So the human chat GPT, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So that's it. So we start with getting an idea about what's the root. Then they can release the impact of that. Now, this is a virtual process as we're doing it, but to the subconscious mind, it's real. It's connected with it. You know, it's involved.
Yep.
So it's letting go of something in its mind and creating a void as a result of that.
So the second one is release, just so that's clear.
Release the impact, right?
Release the impact of the roots.
Yep. Right. And if there's the 10 roots, you got to do it 10 times. Okay. You know, for that particular issue. And then once they've done that, there's that opening that the subconscious mind would fill on its own if we just stopped at that point, can be filled by the person. And so now, after you have done the first two, now you're going to replace what was released.
Okay.
So you're going to fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where a person, I just suggest to them to imagine that now that they're able to move forward, to just do that. Let themselves just kind of move forward in their mind, and the subconscious mind brings positive insights, information, feelings into them. And I'm taking notes all the time, of course, because this is the start of the new them, the new habit that they're working on creating.
Okay.
Habits usually take hold by repetition.
Sure.
So now we've got to the replacement, and I think this is your original question, perhaps. Now we have to reinforce it, because it's the repetition that's going to allow it to become the new habit, all the positives that they automatically put in.
Yep. So you replace what was recognized from the root.
Yep.
So I'm just kind of reversing it here through another R. So if you don't do the work to replace it, what can happen? Like if the subconscious mind just replaces it on its own, you know, is that problematic?
It's not as thorough. Yeah, because it's the reinforcement over and over and over that really makes the difference.
Yep. So replace and then reinforce.
Yeah. So the reinforcement is that I'll ask the person to just imagine all the positives they brought forward,
mm-hmm.
and then allow to come into their mind a word or words that would just represent all that. And it's very easy to do, and it happens very, very quickly, usually.
So they come up with the words to reinforce that represent that new replacement.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And then they have some homework to do that allows them in repetitive ways to do that reinforcement.
Okay.
So it's all in building this new direction higher and stronger until it's permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And new habits can take hold in as little as 3 to 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them to do some reinforcement in the conscious mind, but especially in self-hypnosis, which they learn in the first session.
Yep.
And so they're getting the most powerful way of reinforcing. And when we do that for the whole process, then I call them 4 weeks later just to make sure. Even though we've been building all along, I like to say, all right, let's take 4 weeks now to make sure this gets in place.
Mm-hmm.
And at vast majority of the time, it's there. If there's a little wrinkle that still is raising its hand and say, hey, watch out for me,
mm-hmm.
We can probably take care of that pretty quickly.
Interesting. So first session, they're taught a form of self-hypnosis.
Yeah, how to go into self-hypnosis all by themselves.
And so, and this is not to give away any secrets or anything, but so this is like rolling your eyes in the back of your head, right? So you roll your eyes in the back of your head, and like with your eyes open.
So going into hypnosis usually involves the closing of eyes fairly soon in that process, because that blocks out other things that might get their attention.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I ask them to take a deep breath through their nose and hold it a couple of seconds with their eyes open, and then as they release the breath, the eyelids close.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts the process. Now they're connected with their thinking about, okay, well, what am I doing here? What am I going to be doing next? And then we give them a little more in the way of comfortable suggestions to help them go more comfortably and more deeply relaxed. And then at some point in that process, probably near the end, and I'll ask them a couple of times what level of hypnosis they're in. We'll use a little scale, ask the subconscious mind where they are on a ruler scale, and it just gives an answer like that. Wow. So we have a sense as to, okay, this can be a beginning level, this can be a good intermediate level, oh, this is a big level for a first session, say. So then they anchor that. And the anchoring movement, I'll just ask them to allow their dominant hand, or it could be both hands, to come to rest somewhere in the body that feels comfortable. So they're not even consciously thinking about it. They're in hypnosis now. They were asked to do something, and they'll just cause their hand to land somewhere. I then give them suggestions that whenever they want to go into self-hypnosis, which they're at now, all they have to do is get a little comfortable, do that little breathing and the exhaling and the eye closure, and then do that anchoring movement. And each time they do that, that sends two messages. One to the conscious mind, which is 10% of the mind, to take a break, disconnect, make sure it gets out of the way.
Yep.
The other to the subconscious mind to bring the person right back to the deepest level of relaxation they reached previously. And it just works like that.
Yeah, so that anchoring technique, that movement of the hand or whatever it may be, is kind of becomes a, you can almost call it even a trigger.
Sure.
Right? Like, so like just not to use the opposite type of terminology, but that's what maybe is the physical attribute that the subconscious can say, okay.
Exactly.
Now we've started.
Exactly.
So yeah. How is hypnosis different than meditation? Well,
I think we'd say they're both alternate states of mind. My feeling is it's how you use it. I mean, I'm sure that, I've had people who have done a lot of meditation, and they can come in and they can very easily go into a relaxed state on their own.
So is it easier to hypnotize someone who meditates regularly?
Well, someone who meditates regularly, I usually ask, a little more about the meditation, and I give them a choice. And, I said, I could give you some suggestions, but you might want to do it yourself with where you've meditated so much. Mm-hmm. But then I always ask them on that ruler scale where they are, because they've meditated a long time doesn't mean that they're going to be way down on that scale.
Okay.
It depends on the person. Mm-hmm. So
I imagine trust is a factor and all of those things. And so you've been in this practice for how long?
34 years.
34 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're how old?
I'm 83.
83. Okay. So that means you started in this practice when you were 49?
Yeah.
In your late 40s?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very curious, as someone who's in their mid 40s, right? So, and what what did you do before, and what was it that made you decide to go into this as a new career path, or was it a new career path? Was your previous career connected to this at all?
Somewhat connected at times. Yeah, I mean, I had a number of careers prior to finding hypnosis. Many of them in the sort of the counseling direction. I was a high school guidance counselor for 15 years. I worked at a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed boys for 4 years.
Okay.
I was a sheetrock contractor for 12 years.
12 years. Okay,
Yeah.
so you did a lot. Then that's
but the sheetrock contractor was just before hypnosis, and so now I was getting a little older. I was getting in my 60s, and thinking that maybe I'd like to work with my mind more than my back. And so when we back to a college experience, 1964, senior year in college, and my roommate's younger brother came up from high school, a junior. And he's like this junior in high school, and he's been studying hypnosis. And he said, I can hypnotize anybody.
And this was in the mid 60s?
Yeah, 64.
64. Okay. And so he had just started studying hypnosis then.
That's right. Well, the younger brother, I don't know how long, but not a long time.
Yep.
But with the kind of the bravado of a junior in school, he came up and he said he could hypnotize anybody.
Okay.
So my roommate and I had the same idea at the same time. We had a friend down the hall who was blind. Neat guy, just happened to be blind from birth.
Sure.
So we asked Doug if he'd want to do a little experiment. He said sure. So he came down, because we had the 64, all I knew about hypnosis was a pendulum swinging back and forth.
Yeah, pocket watch or something,
and
right?
That's what we figured.
Yep.
So this fellow talked him into hypnosis. I mean, we didn't know what was going on. and he gave him 2 what are called post-hypnotic suggestions, that when he came back to a fully conscious state, he would do this and he would do that.
Okay.
So he came back, and after a couple of minutes, he said he had a sweater on over his shirt, and he said, it's getting a little warm in here. I'm going to take the sweater down to my room, and he did. And then he came back, and a little while later, he said, gee, it's getting cold in here. I'm going to go get my sweater. He did both those things.
Yep.
Blew us away.
Yeah.
We had no idea what happened.
Yep.
So that was my introduction to hypnosis.
Wow, okay.
I backburned it for 25 years, other careers. And then I started thinking, well, maybe hypnosis. And the more I read, I went to workshops and was getting excited about it. Took some official training, and the rest is history.
Now, is it that you didn't expect that it could be a viable career at that point? Like when you first gained interest in it, or was it just that it was a passing interest and maybe wasn't something you even expected to have a career in, but just maybe had some interest in?
I wish I had some kind of a sense that if this was what I was expecting it might be like, that it could become a career. I mean, that's why I was taking those workshops and trying to find out as much about it as I could.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, how long after you discovered it did you start going to workshops?
I missed that. I stopped doing that.
So from when you discovered it. So from how long was it from when you discovered hypnosis with your friend who would come and hypnotize your neighbor there?
Right.
How long was it from then to when you started going to workshops and started exploring it more deeply, or was it right after?
No, 25 years.
Oh, so 25 years later.
Right.
Okay. It just so it was in the back of your mind that whole time, and you hadn't really done anything with it.
It was way back. It was forgotten.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the opportunity for another career change was looming, and I started to think, what and how and why, and I just had that come forward. And
do you know what resparked it?
Yes. I had some aspects of myself that over the years I wasn't particularly happy with, and the more I was getting into hypnosis, the more I thought, well, it sounds like I could not only help people but maybe myself.
Ah.
And so I think that was the thing. It just kind of things came together, and that was it.
Yeah, I feel like one would gather that. I mean, I think to have that interest and to find yourself led down that path, and even for me in doing this podcast, a lot of this and this conversation and so forth is to help me as much as it is to help anyone who's listening, and to even reinforce some things for myself, or for me to have the opportunity to learn things myself.
Yeah.
And so I think anytime somebody heads down that path, it's going to be because they have an interest because of how it could help them, and then they recognize how it could help others.
Sure. Yeah.
Are you willing to share any of the things you might have been feeling as you changed careers? Because I think this is something a lot of people deal with now, and you might know better than myself. But in terms of finding their place and finding their career or finding some place, I think we also have this misconception that for most of our lives, I think that we're going to have one career, or that we're we set this goal and we think that once we reach that goal, then we're just going to be, everything's going to be fine. And, there's going to be so much more after that. And for you to write your book now, I guess I feel like at 84, that's how long was that a goal to write a book?
Well, as I was going through the process over the years, people would often say, because you're good at this, or I sense something here. Why don't you write a book? It's just kind of like that. Why don't you write a book? And so I think that was just the beginning. I hadn't thought about writing a book. I was happy doing what I was doing, and I thought that was enough. But the more I realized that my approach is fairly unique in the hypnotic field, and the successes have been really wonderful overall, then I thought, well, maybe I could share that with the world.
Right. So that's your contribution.
So then it started to become more of a thing. I actually had written a newsletter to a group of people on my list, a monthly newsletter for 6 years. Once a month. And that was, in effect, like a chapter in my book, or one of the issues in the chapter in my book. So I had that already as a starter.
Yep.
And so I just took off from there. And it still took probably 2.5 years to get through the whole process.
And I took us off course because I was what I was getting to is just because I think so many people will find themselves stuck, whether it's in a career or just in a situation that they're not happy with, and they have a really hard time moving past that, or figuring out how to move forward, or how to move in a new direction. And are those things you dealt with as you found yourself moving through different careers and ultimately landing in hypnosis?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Not always knowingly, sometimes with the surprise that you have to react to. But yeah, I think that was pretty much how it worked. Yeah, that things were going along, and maybe I wasn't quite as happy as I wanted to be, and I thought, well, maybe I'd try something else. But so those were probably gentle ways, but I think it's also possible that something can throw a person out of sorts completely, and they have to look for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something unexpected.
Right.
That's outside of their control.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all dealt with those situations too. There's always going to be some that, are outside of your control. I like to, at least, I guess it helps me anyway, helps me to take responsibility. There's another R, but to take responsibility for whatever the heck happens, because ultimately I'm at the very least responsible for doing whatever comes next. Right. So I guess for me, it helps to at least try to take responsibility, even for something that I might not have had control of, because otherwise it's harder to find a way forward.
Right. Yeah. But you think of who we are and how we get there. There are all kinds of twists and turns and forks in the road.
Right.
And there are a lot of things that, especially if it's in a more negative direction with someone in our life who's negative to us, then that's going to take hold and be a factor as we move forward. So hypnosis is the answer to all of that.
And do you feel like, so at this stage in your life, do you feel like there's an expiration date on that like when, if somebody went through certain things in their childhood, that they should be over them by a certain time in their life?
No, because if you think of, let's put hypnosis over here, and now they're only dealing with the 10% of the mind that's conscious, although the habits that build up, once habits take hold, think of them as on automatic pilot. Now it's possible. I mean, people especially maybe who had a drinking problem, and with the support of AA, I've talked to people who have just been free for many years. So I'm saying that kind of thing is possible, but I think it's more unusual. So if someone is battling these habits that just are continuing to tell them to do what they learn to do, whether they want to or not, then that's unfortunately what may last their whole life.
Yeah.
Unless they can take control. And I think that's very, very unusual when that can happen.
What might have been a coping mechanism for something or another. In your 34-year career, what has changed the most about people's minds and what you're seeing in terms of trends, what people might be dealing with, or whatever might come to mind? Yeah.
Huh. Interesting when you said that. I thought backwards rather than forward. Somewhere in the book, I talk a little bit about prehistoric people, and like there's a modern history of hypnosis, and it might go back to the 1600s or so. But I just believe that if we look at the ancient peoples, prehistoric people, they all had a chief, they all had a medicine person, or they all had a healer, but there was a medicine person, or like a witch doctor, they might have called him, that sort of was second to the chief and had ceremonies, and there was always chanting and maybe some kind of drumming or rattling.
Yep.
And what that does is that causes people to go into a hypnotic state. It's just the repetition of the same sound. And then he or she would proclaim things, and maybe they were calling the buffalo, however they did it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm convinced that hypnosis was around back then.
Yeah, well.
And so things have changed only in what needs to be done, or what can benefit from hypnosis. Helping people.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, certainly this is something people have done for thousands of years.
I believe so. Yes.
It wouldn't be the possibility, I suppose, wouldn't be built into us, right? If there wasn't something there, and it wouldn't have persisted for so long. And actually, I feel like it's gaining some. I think a lot more people are recognizing that real things can come from hypnosis and from altering the state of the mind and so forth. Whereas for a lot of years, it's been considered kind of woo woo and
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So is that something you've changed? So I mean, that's very interesting. What you bring up are those ceremonies and how all of that, because music can certainly do that to you, and that was the way that I think they were doing that. We find ourselves hypnotized multiple times a day, whether we know it or not. I understand.
Yes.
And so, I mean, yeah, there were so many things that they did in ancient cultures that brought people to altered mind states, and some of these included hallucinogens and things like that as well. Is that anything you've ever explored?
I haven't.
No? Is it something that has come more to? It's something that's come more to the forefront. So is it anything that's ever interested you, or that you've heard good or bad things about?
Hard to answer that, because I haven't done any of that myself. I guess I haven't felt a need to do it, or maybe not even a curiosity to do it, because I've probably been very satisfied with how things have been working.
Because you've been able to go deep enough, you feel like, with the practices you've done.
Yeah. I do self-hypnosis all the time. Talk to my subconscious mind, ask its help, and things like that. So yeah.
Sure. And I guess, so to get back to that last question. So I guess what I want to zero in on is your general patient that you would have seen 30 years ago versus the general patient that you would see today. That's a new patient. What differences are you recognizing in what people are dealing with, or how their minds might even work, or the what's changed and how you have to approach that beyond the 4 R's and the new framework that you've come up with, have you noticed anything else that's changed as the world has changed, as technology has changed, as large language models and all these things?
Yeah, I think the consistent thing is that when people need and want help, and they find a way to hopefully get it, I think that's been the consistent thing. The people may change, they may dress a little differently, they may act a little differently, but I think there's that one consistency, and other than that, it's the same thing.
What was the consistency? Just that people seek help when they need it.
Right. If they can find help. I mean, a lot of people don't even think about, gee, could hypnosis help me? It's just not in their ballpark. But if they somehow talking with a friend, and the friend maybe had seen something about me or my book, and they said, well, gee, maybe I'll give it a try. So those are the kind of things that I think attract people. They have a need. They're looking for an answer to it, and it's the people may be different, but I don't see a different trend. I think it's always the same, that they just need help, and they try hypnosis because everything else failed, perhaps.
Are the things that they need help with changing, or have those always been the same?
Yeah, they've been the same.
Really?
I've worked with over 300 issues with people. And so, think of what's covered in 300 issues. I mean, almost anything that people need help with.
So if you made a chart of those 300 issues, it's the issues that people have been dealing with are pretty much flat over the last 30 years, you'd say?
I wouldn't say necessarily just flat,
or pretty much the same.
They come in waves, maybe, Okay. But overall, that's what's been happening.
Are there any new issues that you've seen arise in the last 10 years as technology has scaled and social media and stuff like that? Has that made a difference in what people are coming to you for?
I think overall maybe more stress as a result of that. More people.
Do you think people are higher stressed now than they were?
I would say that. Yeah, that might be the one factor that I can think about that's changed. Yeah.
That's interesting. I suppose it is a higher stress place. At least that's when I look at my memories and so forth. Just as much has changed, and it's just so much faster paced than it used to be. And we're so engaged / disengaged because everyone's on screens and devices and so forth. So that those things can certainly increase stress levels. So what can hypnosis, what do you think it does the best? Like, what does it do really well in terms of when someone's trying to make a change, or they're trying to move past a habit, whether it's smoking or overeating or something like that? What does it do best? Is it for habits like that, or is it for real states of change, like somebody having a rare form of cancer? Is there one in particular that you think it's better at, or more of a sure thing for?
I guess I'd say I don't think of it that way.
Okay.
Because the process is basically the same, and the results are basically the same. Whether it's a teenager came for biting his nails, you think, well, that's a pretty simple thing, and maybe it is a pretty simple thing. But someone else comes and they've got this issue that is ingrained for 60 years, and they're now trying to get out of it. The process can help both be successful. It's more maybe the length of time involved that's going to make the difference.
The amount of time you've got to spend with them?
Right, to work on the things. 60 years of the same issue, there have to be a lot of aspects of that that need to be pulled out and replaced.
Right, something that's taken 60 years to set in, or that's been set in over 60 years, isn't going to be erased in a few weeks.
Right. Probably not. But then we have to look at degrees, and we have a person who maybe had a terribly traumatic childhood. and they might be 10 years old and just have a pile of things that they need to get out of.
Is that probably the most common thing that you think people are working through? Is childhood trauma?
I think it's surprisingly more prevalent than I would have imagined originally. Yeah.
The more people that I talk to and the more people that I get to know, I feel like everyone's dealing with their own measure of childhood trauma. I feel like it's kind of hard to avoid. And as a parent myself, having been through the traumatic things that I've been through, some of which include, my parents, of course, I really try to be as conscious of that as I can be with my children, or at least reflective. And as my older daughter has pointed out, that I've never been too proud to go back and apologize for things or something like that, or talk through something later, just because so much can and I guess I've had some time to sort some of those things out myself. And as parents, I think we try to buffer our kids as much as we can from that, but I think sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. But because ultimately I don't think any of us get out of childhood unscathed.
And there might be a few exceptions, but I think they'd be the few.
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I've really met any, because even some of the people I think that present as that they don't have anything sometimes have deep scars.
They may. Sure.
Yeah. But what's the difference between someone who actually makes a change and someone who comes to you and wants to change? Because I can't imagine that this works every time, and not saying it's, So is there a difference between somebody who just really wants to change and comes to you, and somebody that comes to you and actually follows through on that and makes the change? Is there anything you notice?
Well, I'd like to think that the one who's really wants to and is motivated might be more successful. Again, we're talking about individuals, and it's the degree of wanting to or not, and those will be factors certainly. But when we finally are able to understand and benefit from hypnosis, it's like things like that don't matter. We're talking with a highly motivated person, and that person may be done in 2 or 3 sessions. We're talking about one who's been battered for many years. It may take 5 or 6 sessions.
Right. So they're all so individually different.
It's absolutely. Yeah.
Or do you think it could be, because certainly everyone's going to want to make that change that comes to see you. Some people may be successful at it and some people won't be. Do you think, I suppose if I rephrase the question, are there different degrees in which that people try to hold on to these identities as much as they want to release them? And did you notice, is there anything you've noticed that helps people who are more resistant to making those changes be more successful?
I have a couple of, if I need them, techniques that I don't always use. Say.
Okay.
So if I have someone who, well, let's just say a person is like a type A personality, really high strung and can't relax. So that's a case where I would bring out maybe a process of talking to them that I've either seen somewhere else or written out myself, and that's going to have a lot more repetition to it. Because we're trying to help that busy mind just get out of the way. And so if we're just doing the same thing over and over and over, then that has the chance of maybe being successful. Whereas with other people, it's gently asking the questions, letting the answers come.
Yep.
So it's
So there's special tools sometimes that you have to pull out
when necessary.
Sure.
They can help. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Does that become apparent pretty quickly in a session?
Oh.
What kind of person you're dealing with there and what kind of tools you'll have to pull out?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talk about establishing rapport.
Of course.
Getting a nice connection between.
Yep.
And I read something way back that seems to work, and that is that if you listen to what a person is saying,
mm-hmm.
they're going to have their own vocabulary that tells you if they're primarily a visual person, which maybe many artists tend to be,
mm-hmm.
Whether they're going to be auditory primarily, or whether they're going to be kinesthetic, which is sensing and feeling. So those are the three major senses that we work with in hypnosis. So if a person is visual,
mm-hmm.
and we're talking in a conversation and getting to know each other a little bit, a visual person will often, when asked a question, kind of look up. They just unconsciously, they just look up. It's like they're looking for the answer up there, and then they can say it.
Mm-hmm.
An auditory person, as we're talking, will just be glancing to the side. They're trying to hear it, the answer. A kinesthetic person is sensing and feeling, so they kind of look down, usually to the right. They're trying to feel grounded so they can process the information.
Okay.
Yeah. So by recognizing what a person seems to have as their primary way of processing information,
mm-hmm.
then I can give them the same kind of information back by using, say, words that are visual type words. And so we have a bond that way, automatic. That's a way of establishing rapport.
So by learning what type of, or how that person is going to receive you, how that person is going to receive the information, helps you tailor how you present that information. Right.
Yes.
And that's a pretty interesting skill to learn. And so that's something you apply every time you meet with somebody new, I suppose.
Every time.
Yeah.
And if I miss something, and I just am not comfortable with where I think they are, I'll ask them.
Sure. Yeah. How long did it take you to become adept at that?
Oh, it took some practice. Yeah.
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 Yep.
Yeah. It took a while.
Is it automatic now? Do you do it without knowing it?
No. I still I know that that's something I want to do in those initial moments.
Okay.
And so I just try to do it then.
Let's see. Is there a common hidden belief that you hear in people who keep self-sabotaging? Is that something you see a lot?
That's exactly what happens when a habit takes hold, a negative habit takes hold.
Mm-hmm.
And we say they repeat the self-sabotage because that's who they are. They have no choice.
They've connected their identity to it.
Yeah. I mean, or the identity is connected anyway, yes, they're connected with their identity. Yeah. So we think of habits, something as simple as, you walk in the bathroom, you have young children, and you see that there's a toothpaste tube that the top's off and you can't find the top anywhere. And something in your past was, put the top on that damn toothpaste. And so that's your response, right? Because that little thing has stuck as a habit. It doesn't come out often, but when it does, well, you don't have any chance of being otherwise. You just react. I'm not saying you, but anyway.
Right.
So
I like the cover on the toothpaste. It's make a mess otherwise. And so maybe on a less deep level, but what's the most effective way that you've seen people be able to reduce anxiety that isn't talked about enough, that maybe isn't something that everyone's doing, that would be a simple trick that could help just maybe bring them down a level?
I don't think I have one.
Really?
I'm just thinking as you're talking about that anxiety, and I think of
because sometimes people must come into your office feeling pretty anxious, especially if it's the first time meeting you, if it's maybe something that they don't know if they're super comfortable with, and they're dealing with anxiety and stress and maybe self-sabotaging, and they're just in a rough place and can't get out of their own head.
Yeah.
Is there any trick that you might use to just kind of help getting them started and relaxing a little bit?
I think what I'd probably do would be to spend more time just talking with them.
Okay.
just being calm.
Yep.
Role modeling what I'm hoping they're going to be able to do even a little bit, so we could get started with it. But yeah.
Well, you seem like a pretty calming person. I must say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think I'm conscious of that. Whoever comes in, whatever they're like, probably in the first 5 seconds, I've sized them up a little bit, enough to know, okay, maybe this is the best way to proceed. But with those people who are really, really still traumatized, say, I think you have to treat them just more gently, more comfortably.
Does it take generally? Is that's going to be more sessions? You think if they've got some real deep things that they're working through?
Yeah.
What percentage of people do you see that are really dealing with deep stuff versus people who just need a little help?
Yeah, surprisingly more with the deep. Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, because I mean, we think of well, you talked about parents and parents having an impact on their children, but it goes back further as impacts. The transgenerational trauma is way ancestors were that can be passed down through the genes, and we don't even know it where it came from.
Right.
So that's another buildup.
That's something I've always felt. I almost kind of at some point. I don't know how, but I feel like I just understood intuitively. So my father was raised in South Korea. He was born just after the war. So he's half black, half Korean. His mother was, he never knew his mother or his father. His father was probably a black American GI who was there for the war. And there was a lot of these kids. And where was I going with that again? But yes, so many of the things that he went through there, and I mean, some of the stories he has growing up in that orphanage in the 50s almost sound like a concentration camp, and like they were almost trying to kill these kids off. I shouldn't even say almost. It's pretty clear they didn't want their culture to be essentially diluted by all of these mixed race kids that were a result of the war. So it's just some of the things he was put through were just crazy, and he would have some of these stories, and I always wondered if that it was something at some point I just kind of understood that those experiences whereas I wasn't there, but in some way, shape, or form are passed down to me as well, and will continue, and just certain things that I guess I've looked at, and the fact that my father didn't have a father, so he was raising me, learning how to be one, and as I'm raising my son, really doing my best to try to make sure that whatever generational trauma that's kind of filtered down to me stops with me. Are there ways that you've found that are most useful for people to accomplish that, or to kind of stop that or filter that from continuing on?
Yeah, well, I think it's like trying to find the roots of the problem. And we can go back farther than many people even don't even wonder about. So the transgenerational is one direction that can come down and influence. If we just say, let's go back to when we're in the womb.
Right.
Same thing. Whatever the mother is experiencing, the baby, the fetus is going to be experiencing, because it's all one system. So if we can help someone in their mind go back to the womb, they don't have cognitive memories of those times. The brain wasn't developed, but they have body sensation and cellular memories. So the same thing can happen. Whatever's happening that might be a negative and getting repeated, they can be born with that as a habit. So we can go back to the womb in hypnosis and do the same process of releasing and replacing so that they can be free of that. But now let's go back another way and think of past lives.
I was looking forward to getting there, because that was something I heard you talk about, and that I have a lot of interest in, and maybe some of my own theories. But Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and so I have kind of a checklist that I like to try to make sure we've kind of hit on each one of those, whether they apply or not.
Mm-hmm.
And past lives is just one of those maybe more unusual ones. So I would explain a little bit about past lives as I understand them, and then I would ask their subconscious mind if they've ever experienced a past life, and they'll get a yes or a no usually.
Okay. So you're literally just asking the subconscious mind.
It's all right there. It's all right there.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we could ask, well, was there anything that took place in that past life that might be influencing you in this life? The idea that, energy from past lives called karma can come forward, supposedly, if you believe in this. And it can be good or not so good. So it's just like, we're victims in some respect here. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Well, we're all made of memory,
Mm-hmm.
right? I guess that's how I've come to understand it. And one of probably my favorite book, I'd have to say, at least at this stage, because I've read it a couple times, I've bought it for people, I've suggested it for people, is Karma by Sadhguru. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book or heard of Sadhguru, but he talks about how karma has just been, like, the word itself has really just been kind of stripped of what its real meaning kind of is, and it kind of gets looked at as this glorified abacus, almost like of good and bad. Basically, it's just, if you're doing bad things, then you get more weight over here. If you're doing good things, then you have more of this direction. When in reality, it's karma's memory, right? And so it's passed down through generations. You're born with a certain amount of karma to work through in your own life, whatever new karma that we acquire or accumulate is really based on our volition, right? And basically just the universal balance. Whereas if you and of consequence of what you choose to do with your volition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess bringing that back to our subconscious, or those memories. So I guess you're telling me that you can bring somebody further than their own lived experience to bring up things that could be impacting their life now.
Right. Yeah.
How often is that a thing?
I don't use it a lot. I'll use it a lot, but I'll almost always just ask that question to check it off.
Yep.
So it's not a regular thing, I would say.
Sure. So not everyone's walking around here with all these past lives and stuff.
No, but they may be, but not know it.
Right. And are those past lives normally people then who would be in their bloodline?
Who would be what?
In their bloodline, like in their family, or are these past lives? Is it possible that these are completely unconnected to who they, or to where they're from? I've heard a theory once that I always found to be interesting, that when we die, our souls break as if they were glass, and they can get, basically, the analogy was that they would get swept up into a new human, right? So if all these people died, once, then you've got all this glass, and when that glass gets swept up into a new human, it's including bits and pieces of all of these other people. And their experiences in their lives.
Wow.
And I'm butchering the story, but that's the basic gist.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. Huh.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
It's out there, but yeah.
But I think bloodlines I think it goes both ways.
Okay.
I think it can be someone that they just happen to meet who's not related to them. And it can be familial, certainly, in families. Yeah, I haven't really paid attention to that enough to give you a complete answer, but I've seen it both ways. I don't know if one is more prevalent than the other. You might know that from your readings with the past lives.
Well, you talked a little bit in some of the videos, 'cause I haven't finished your book yet. I plan to. I don't get as much time to read as I'd like, but the videos were pretty easy to get through. But you talked about some of your own past lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was it like discovering those? And were you willing to talk about those at all?
Sure. Yeah. The first one was at a National Guild of Hypnotists convention.
Mm-hmm.
And back at that time, probably 1992, I was not the kind of person who would raise my hand and volunteer to be up in front of a group. But in that particular workshop, I did, and I was picked. And so I was hypnotized and asked if I could go to a past life experience. And so I did. It was very, very calm. I was an Eskimo, and I was pulling a sled, and I was going to a cove where I knew there might be seals underneath the thinner ice. And there were no seals, and I just went back to the Eagle. But that was my first experience. Nothing really happened other than I made a connection with Eskimos, Native Americans, which I've always had in this life. Just
okay.
Just a feeling. There's some connection.
Interesting.
There. Yeah, but I've gone to a number of others on my own. Probably the most exciting was I was a 17 or 18-year-old youth in the colonial days. I'd been captured by a Native American tribe, and I was going to have to run the gauntlet. So the gauntlet being the women and children mostly, but maybe young braves, and they'd form this double line, and the person got to run through and would be hit with any kind of weapons that were available, and most of them died. And not many people lived through the gauntlet. So here I was, and it was my turn. This is my past life now.
And you relived this.
Yeah.
And,
I saw. I mean, I'm not visual. I'm kinesthetic, but I felt it all just right, like it was happening. So I knew if I just ran straight down this, probably 100 yards of people, I wouldn't make it. So I was thinking, all right, so I'm gonna kind of surprise them. I'm gonna dodge and weave and bob around and then spurt and see how far I can get.
Yeah.
So I got right to the end. I mean, I'm bloody and everything, Get right to the end, and there's this huge Native American standing there with a war club. And I'm like, God, how could I ever get by him? So I ran right at him, and I faked one way, and I dove the other way. And as I dove across the line, he knocked me out with his war club. Oh. and I was tended by the Native women for 3 months before I was healed.
Wow.
And then I stayed as a member of the tribe.
And you have that clear of a memory of all of it.
Absolutely.
Of the time frame and all those things happening.
Yeah, it was just like it was just happening today. Yeah.
Wow. And so I just have to ask, because I mean, so much of us are caught up in at least our version of now. How hard was it to accept that, I guess, for yourself? Or at that point, had you heard enough about these experiences, or was it just that vivid and that real that you kind of knew what it was? Or was it maybe something you tried to write off as a dream? Or gosh, what am I talking about?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people's first reaction to that is going to be like, they're going to try to explain it off as a dream or something less important.
That was not my first one. So I had several others that were milder, but that there was some kind of a connection with them, with me in this life. That was the important thing for me. So when this one happened, it was certainly much more powerful than any of the others. But I just took it for what it was worth, and I realized that there was a connection there. I stayed with the tribe after that. And I just always, when I was a young teenager, I was reading Indian books, white Indian books, and on and on and on.
Before any of knowledge of this,
right?
Yeah, yeah. So did all of them reveal something that you had a interest in, like throughout your life, that you maybe had no idea where that interest came from?
Yes and no. Yeah, there was one where I was I was a slave in the pyramids, and that was not a good one. I mean, there was not a good ending to that one, and that so that had kind of a negative connection that I wanted to get rid of, actually.
Mm-hmm. So you think that experience in a previous life was impacting your now?
Wasn't what?
Was impacting your now?
Yes.
Your
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it was definitely connected. Yeah. Yeah.
But was there? Had you? Well, I guess so. Kind of where you were talking about having an interest in Native culture, Native American culture. Did you find that you had a similar interest in Egyptian culture or an aversion to it that maybe might have pointed to this past life, or was it just maybe the native thing?
I'm not sure about the pyramid one. That was kind of unique in a way.
Hmm.
But I was also a gladiator in Roman times.
Hmm.
And I had we became a team, a partner, and this was this tall black fellow, and I was shorter but very strong. And so we went through a number of I don't know what to call them, but we survived all of them, and we retired, and they put us out to pasture, so to speak. So that was a good thing, but the hand to hand combat, the swords and everything, I've just always liked that. And not that I've done a lot of, say, foreign ways of battling or anything, but I've been a real active person as far as sports go.
Okay.
And I think I saw some similarities there, that they were good, they were rewarded in the end, and that connected with one experience I had as a football player in high school. So there's usually a connection, because when I go into hypnosis, I'm asking my subconscious mind if if I might go to a past life, and leave it at that, and then it will seemingly make the connection for me.
Okay. And will that sometimes be one you've connected to before and you're able to kind of reconnect to it, or is it generally a new one?
Always new.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you kind of answered the next question that I was getting to, with which if you see any part of yourself as you know yourself to be now in any of these, we'll call them characters, just for lack of a better. I just like how that sounds. Do you see any connection to who you are or who you've been, to any of those people?
Yeah, lots. I think for the most part, I'm the same person of today inside. I think there was one exception. I was a street urchin in Britain. I was, I think, 9 or 10 years old, and I was just going around trying to survive, and nobody, no family, and stealing things, and so that was a little surprise.
So that makes me think about, so the struggles and the pain that people go through today, just as they did in any time throughout history. Does that, do you think that a lot of it is maybe due to the fact that they're focused on it? Or I guess, so like, we've always gone through tough times, like, and so I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of people, I think, are seeking better times, or obviously a better state of mind, without understanding the value of both, and the fact that of their throughout their life, they're going to experience it all, and there's no way to not experience bad time or bad frames of mind, and to just understand that that's part of life, I guess. As you just kind of mentioned, these different experiences that your past lives have been through, it almost, I don't know, it makes me feel grounded in the fact that everyone's dealt with issues, and everyone's always going to deal with issues, and there's just no way around that. No one's necessarily special for dealing with issues, but no one's at the same time, everyone deserves grace, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when we're going through so much, we can forget that everyone else is going through just as much or more, or we have just no idea. So having had the perspective of these other lives, do you feel like that's given you any more empathy?
Sure. Yeah. And as I was saying, there always seems to be a connection that I can use or can help me in this life. That's just the sort of the expectation I have when I go to a past life.
So when you go to a past life, you generally come back from that self-hypnosis session with a tool or something that you can tangibly use.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So about the book, you maybe already touched on this, but so I feel like somebody doesn't, I mean, what do I know in my 40s, right? But what I found interesting about that is that, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is so many times we have these goals and we think that once we achieve that goal, we'll be satisfied, and we forget, like, because you're always setting new goals, right? So this is writing a book and publishing it is a pretty big goal to achieve, and so to do that in your 80s, I feel like is a testament to always having goals, right? And to that we're never going to be done after this next goal. And I feel like that's, I don't know if people find comfort in thinking they'll be done after the next goal, or if it's something that they're afraid of and not knowing what's going to come next, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, how have you found goal setting, or now as you reflect, as I would expect you've probably done a fair amount of, in your years, as you reflect, do you ever look back on any particular goals that aren't as important now as you made them at the time, or any particular goals that stand out, or that have maybe dug at you that you didn't go for?
Interesting question. I think I'm a more process-oriented person than a goal-oriented person. Okay. Not that I haven't thought of goals, but what I'm really comfortable with is doing something that hopefully is interesting and challenging, but is very satisfying along the way. And I think it's the satisfaction that of the process allowing me to continue to be, pretty satisfied and comfortable, that might lead to a goal. But I think that's the more important one, just as far as who I am.
Well, and I think there's a lot to that. I think so many times, and that's maybe what I'm getting to, is that so many times people focus too much on the goal, right? And not focusing on the process. So that's always the fun part. When you look back after achieving a goal, it never really feels that great. Once you achieve that goal, it's what I found is once you achieve that goal, it might be one tiny kind of exhale or a eureka moment or something like that. But in actuality, the fun part of that whole process was the process itself.
Right.
And I think so many people forget that. And I think once I'm done with this goal, once I finally do this, then I can relax, and that never feels as great as they expect it to.
Yeah.
That now I can relax part, because now most people, I think, then you start working towards something else.
Yep. Yeah. I was a football player in high school. Thanksgiving Day game, senior year, we were playing with Class B school in Massachusetts versus a Class A school. So they were bigger, they were stronger, they had a better record than we did. We didn't have a chance. And we just were going to go out and play the game and hopefully win. And the chances were like this, So we did, and we surprised them, and we won the game. And I happened to be picked the outstanding player of the game, even though it's a team effort, as we know. But all through the game, all we were thinking about was the next tackle, the next block punt, the next run for a touchdown, the next intercepted pass, and we were going through that, and that was the process. That was keeping us going. We were struggling, but we were hoping, and then at the end, it just was over. And in a way, it wasn't. We couldn't believe it. So I'm not sure if that's explaining a little bit or not, but that's the goal. And I mean, the goal was to win.
Yeah.
But in that process, I mean, we're all caught up in the action of doing it and hopefully being successful.
Right. And do you think that you got more satisfaction out of that by just enjoying the play of the game versus making the goal winning the game, even though you won?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it was a sweeter win? Or do you think it was, did it mean more to you that you guys were, that you had fun doing this rather than this was just the goal that you had to do?
I think I think in that instance, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe in that case it was that surprise that you guys had won. Right. But by just enjoying what you were doing versus feeling like you had to accomplish something.
Right.
That's important. Because I think so many people get clouded by, I have to do this. I heard a quote lately that it may be a little bit unrelated, but for some reason it's coming into my head, which is, as a perfectionist or somebody who's identified as a perfectionist myself, is that it doesn't have to get done. It just has to be perfect. Right. Right. So it's like we get so focused sometimes on the perfect end result that sometimes we don't even make it to the end result. Right. And sometimes the win or setting a particular goal sometimes can force us to take our eye off the ball a little bit.
Yeah, cause a lot of anxiety. Right. So, the eye off the ball is interesting. When you think of athletes going into slumps, they're doing something a little different. And they're off in some way. Yep. And until they can identify that, it's just going to continue.
Now, speaking of people in slumps, is that something you see? People come to you if they're just like in a slump, or?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've worked with a lot of athletes.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, I could give you a whole litany of different sports and things. And there's always just, you have to go back to probably that one thing that caused a change. Like a 75-year-old golfer came in. And he couldn't hit a fairway wood or a driver straight, and he had been a real good golfer. And so why did that happen? So we explored it and went back to when he was a tennis player, and he really loved tennis, but something in the family caused him to have to stop playing tennis before he wanted to. So as a result, he had this feeling inside that wasn't fair. So his subconscious mind was transferring that to golf, and so with the tennis stroke before, he started turning his wrist over with the golf.
Yep.
And it threw his whole game off. So.
When he was just subconsciously doing that because of his physical experience.
He still had the anger about leaving tennis too soon. Didn't want to.
Interesting.
And so that was the subconscious mind way of saying, well, now you got to figure this out.
So things will find a way to come out somewhere.
It would seem so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so I kind of touched on this earlier, and it's not something I felt like I needed to spend a lot of time on, but I think it's something that can come up for people that might prevent them from looking towards hypnosis. But what are the ethical red flags that someone should look for or watch for if they're exploring hypnosis, or if they're just maybe even considering it or starting to kind of...
Yeah, that that's really a tough one.
Or do you feel like that's just such not a thing in this community because everyone means so well, or do you think that are there misconceptions that people have?
Well, there may be, but the thing is, if I'm talking with someone and they say, I thought I might like to try hypnosis, so I would say something like, well, if you want to try, I said, find out as much about a person who's doing hypnosis as you can. Yeah, and even interview them on the phone if you want, or Zoom, and don't just go in there cold and hope it's going to work, because we were talking about two camps, the traditional way, and then maybe more what I do, and people have said at times, boy, I wish I found you 10 years ago. So that's the challenge, I think, with hypnosis. I mean, anybody can do hypnosis. Anybody can take a little training, even these days, get a certificate and hang it out, but you don't know just how they do it. And that's to me, that's the name of the game.
Do you think the practices vary widely? The way that people approach their profession?
I think that my understanding is that still people tend to be taught in the traditional way, and until they can color outside the box and discover something, that's what they're going to do. And they certainly, I'm not saying it doesn't work. It can work for most people, perhaps.
Sure.
But I'm concerned about not only the most, but as many as possible.
So do you think that the methodology or the modality is somewhat dated in its approach, or the way that people are taught?
Absolutely.
And it just hasn't. They haven't revised the book.
Yeah, and I guess it's sort of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, I'm not saying it ain't broke, but I think enough people around the world, because this National Guild of Hypnotists that I still belong to, would have a convention each year, and there'd be 5,000 people coming to it from around the world.
And it's all the same things?
The same. That's where I was saying I was like this island of non-resonating beliefs.
Yes, yeah. I can relate to that feeling. So there's never, like, these conferences that they have every year. Are there any new things that are presented ever, or any new findings, or what continues to get people excited? Or is it just the work itself? Do you think that's fascinating enough? Which I'm sure it's plenty fascinating, but is there very often that there's new findings? Do they have a platform for people like yourself that can share things that look, this is what I've found that's really working for me? Or in order to get that out, do you have to write a book?
No, they are open to that. I just I guess I never felt comfortable enough, because it was so different from the traditional way, and I just didn't want to espouse that and take the whatever was coming back from it.
So this was the path you felt comfortable with,
right?
Yeah.
It took me 11 years. And what happened was that I was reading a periodical one time, and there was an article called hypnotherapy in it, and I said, well, I wonder what that is. I'm going to change this, hypnoanalysis. So as I was reading it, I was thinking, whoa, this is exactly what I do, and there's a name for it, and someone's writing about it, so it must be okay. So that kind of convinced me that I was in an okay direction, but it took 11 years to get there, to feel comfortable doing what I was doing.
To color outside the box a little bit.
Because I was having success, but I couldn't connect it with anything that says, yep, you're on the right path.
Yeah. Well, I feel sometimes in order to, quote unquote, break the rules, you have to know the rules, right? So that you can kind of really kind of fine tune what you're doing, or have a real reason for marking outside the line, right? Other than just going wild with a crayon,
right? Yes.
So and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but this has been a really, really interesting conversation, and there's a few more things I think that'd be helpful. When do you think someone should not use hypnosis? When do you think hypnosis is not the answer?
People who have serious mental issues, may well not be able to be helped by hypnosis. If someone's schizophrenic, say, if someone just has a lot of trauma issues in the brain,
so there can
it's
be
not a magic wand,
Yeah, of course,
yeah.
but there can be an extent of trauma that is hypnosis is just not the place to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this person might need real. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've said that a couple of times, a few times to people that after talking with them, I just didn't think I was the right person for them. So maybe I steered them somewhere else. But anyway, that happened several times.
Well, I suppose ethically, that's the right thing to do sometimes.
Well, I just couldn't do otherwise, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, whereas you're seeing so many people talk more about deep childhood traumas and that kind of thing. Do you think that it's something people are that they're actually dealing with more? Or do you think that it's that people are being more open to communicating about it?
I'm thinking that with the rapidity of computers and how people just get so addicted to phones and things. I'm thinking that is definitely hurting the family situation. So they don't have the closeness that they had before, say. And I'm suspecting that maybe that might be causes for a possible increase in trauma.
So more people may feel neglect or
right.
other things.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So that would be the big thing, I think. That.
Well, but I mean, people who are coming to you now, as you said, you're maybe seeing more people who I'm assuming most of the people you see are adults.
The majority are adults.
Yep.
Yes,
yep.
I've worked with children, but the majority are adults. Yep.
Yep. So I guess you can answer from either perspective, that of the children that you see or the adults that you see. So do you think people they're coming to you more for deep trauma that they dealt with in their childhood? And do you think, and you said that increased some over your career. Do you think that that's a product of people being more open to discussing it, or the fact that whether it's now or at some period in time that people were going through more trauma?
Might be a little hard to pin that one down. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking that, boy, way back, I would suspect perhaps that it was similar to today. How people felt inside themselves and how they treated, in effect, how they treated the people they were closest to.
Sure.
I think people who are traumatizers are safe doing it in a non-public situation. They might be the best person in the neighborhood when they're out and about, and when they come home,
right.
then they're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
And that was maybe easier to hide at certain times throughout history.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because of expectations and society, what society accepted. Punishments that society accepted and so forth that are really just no longer acceptable.
Yeah, but my suspicion would be that there's a lot of underground stuff that goes on that doesn't even make it out to society.
Oh, sure. Gosh. Wow. Yeah, I'm sure. And one things that people aren't even willing to share, and people that have been through things that, or just people that even could truly benefit from the help of someone like yourself, and they're just not going to seek it.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think people are seeking help more than they used to? They're more open to it?
I'd like to think that, only because I'm certainly heard that with non-traditional ways of dealing with things more today, then that's going to open up and attract more people who might have been afraid before.
Is a lot of it depression? Do you talk to people who are dealing with depression, or maybe stress from work, or worth like self-worth issues? Is that a lot of it?
Yeah.
So do you think we're seeing more of that as well?
I probably have been seeing a little more of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess how do you identify with somebody? Because I mean, this is kind of you're a therapist as well, so you're helping these people kind of deal with these issues or walk through them. Um, are there particular modalities that you think or tools that somebody that's going through those things um, can use that don't necessarily require 6 sessions of hypnosis, or um, just because if that's such a common thing, are there simple tools that somebody can use that's going to help them with that everyday stress or anxiety, or just being, whether they feel overworked or
Yeah. Well, I'm probably prejudiced because I'm so grounded in hypnosis,
yeah.
and thinking that whatever the issue we have probably has become a habit, and you might overcome it, but boy, those habits are on automatic pilot once they take hold.
Mm.
And so I would say hypnosis, I would think, and maybe meditation would be the best ways to start with. But what I do is when people come, we've maybe talked on the phone, but I'll ask them what they think the most important issue is for them to deal with. And usually they're right. 80% of the time they're probably right. 20% of the time, the subconscious mind might think it's something else. But I always ask that question to make sure we're in the same wavelength. Because if someone comes in for anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking about it, and they seem like they're pretty anxious, but the subconscious mind is thinking that no, there was something sexually when they were young, and that's the big issue first. If we start working on the anxiety, we might not get full cooperation from the subconscious mind because it's back to saying, no, you should be starting over here. So that helps me when people come, get a handle on, okay, is it anxiety? Is it depression? Whatever they might be saying.
So is that fairly common that people will maybe say it's one thing and it ends up being another thing?
Well, I'm guessing 80 or 85% of the time they're on target. If it's anxiety, boy, they know it, and the subconscious mind agrees.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the time it doesn't.
Mm.
And then if we don't talk about it and get permission from the subconscious mind to start wherever we're going to, then they might not be successful.
Well, because that other issue is going to keep raising its hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And one other thing that might be interesting, I talk about number of sessions, and usually it might be 4 or 5 sessions. It could be 6, it could be 3. But there've been a couple of times when it's worked in one session, and it would blow you away. A woman one time had she had gastrointestinal problems her whole life, 50 years old, and she then had I have to think of the name of it in a second. Encopresis. I had no idea what it was. Involuntary bowel movements.
Oh no.
At home.
Oh no.
At home. In public.
Oh no.
No control over it. So think how humiliating and embarrassing that was. 5 years she had it.
This poor woman.
Tests of all kinds.
5 years.
Nobody could figure out why.
Oh.
She came to HypnoHealth. Yeah, she had an atrocious growing up here from my mother. But anyway, she had all those gastrointestinal problems. But she was just so, I think, at her wit's end, and so hoping that it was going to work. And we had one session, and she left. She came back the next time, and I knew something was different, when she walked in. I asked her how she was doing, and she said, it's gone. Never again.
Wow.
So that gives me goosebumps just saying it, because that's very unusual, but a couple of times it's happened.
Wow. Whereas something maybe just needs permission to go away.
Yeah, it's almost like she's the person's right on the edge, and they find this one little opening that says, let it go.
So are a lot of the things that you help people with actual physical things that they're going through that can be released through the mind?
Sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, so much of our physical reality is all starts between our ears, right?
Yeah.
Our mind creates our reality, I suppose. So back to your book, and we'll wrap up soon. But so what's the one chapter through your book, which I look forward to making it through, do you hope people actually do versus just read?
Well, first of all, I'm hoping that,
Well,
not knowing that people will read the whole book, but
right.
I'm hoping that they'll look at the table of contents and just scan the 25 chapters and find one or two or three or four more that connect with them.
Yep.
And that would be the ideal, I think. I'm not saying I'm expecting everybody to read the whole book. And today, people don't read as much as they used to. Certainly.
Sure.
But
so you see it more of a guide that people can refer to for something that they want to address,
yeah,
versus a book that you pick up and start on page 1 and
right,
and read right through.
right, because there's a theme certainly, but the chapters are all different.
Yep.
And then the specific aspects of each chapter are different. So you're getting a variety of ways that if you have an issue and you identify with something, the other thing, whoa, all these people are doing this in these ways and they all get helped. I mean, yeah. So that would be my goal, I think.
And so what do you feel, and we're almost wrapping up here, but how do you feel that people, how much stress or anxiety that people go through do you think is from a skewed idea of what success means, or it's because they're reaching for something, a definition of success that's not of their own definition?
In part of the book, I talk about confidence, and I use examples after I talk about people with confidence and what they're like. And I think of two extremes, and I maybe relate to what you just asked. I think of, let's say there's a person who's growing up in a family that is has, however they've gotten where they've gotten, has a mother and father who are just very happy being parents, and they treat their children that way. So they're kind, they're supportive. They play with them, they laugh with them, they have fun with them, they set good models for them. So those fortunate youngsters are going to grow up and have the wherewithal to pretty much make it through life, probably without any negative things hounding them. But if you go on the opposite extreme and you have someone that's growing up in a household where parents don't have the same experience themselves, maybe they just don't know how to parent, maybe they're abusive, and so that child will grow up with all those things still being habits inside of them. And so, like when you were just saying, there's one little aspect of that you make an effort to be the best you can be with your kids.
Well, and I suppose they attach those, whatever they're seeking that they didn't receive as a child is a lot of times going to be tied to what their version of success is.
Sure.
I suppose.
Sure.
Is receiving that validation that they didn't receive, or that's why maybe somebody who grows up poor, like, at the cost of anything else, just goes towards their version of success might be money, right? Which I think is a lot of people's version of success, which I think is, and I've learned is kind of a false idol. But how do you define success?
Happiness.
That's how I've come to define it myself as well, and more so. And that's that's honestly, that's the answer I was looking for, and I didn't even prep you for it. And so I have a little tradition where, so every guest leaves writes a concept or idea in this journal here, and so and then I'll read that to the next guest. And so it's not necessarily a question for you to answer, but it's more of a concept or an idea and you can give your perspective or interpretation on it. You can expand on it. You can challenge it if you don't agree with it. And then I'll ask you to write your own. So the last guest wrote, there's a difference between internal transformation and external persuasion. Not every awakening requires an audience. It was a little heavier than I expected when I read it too.
Yeah,
but
I have to think about that, man.
And I think his point was that sometimes like these issues that we go through are personal, right? And they don't always need to be broadcast, or when we learn something, it's just a matter of finding that growth personally, and, and being able to live with that, and to take that with us without having to affect other people with it.
Right. Yeah.
Basically.
I certainly agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Anything that you could say to that, I guess, or any way that you would expand on that, or try to clarify it, or how you might put that into your own words.
I could do it and respond to it, but I need to think about it. There's nothing coming right now that says,
yeah,
you know?
Right.
No, it's a challenging statement.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. It is. It's a heavy one. Well, I find that interesting. I think, well, because even in myself, so like, and when I read it, I almost wondered if he was writing it to me, because I feel like I can maybe be privy to this sometimes, where it's like, if I get a new idea or I learn something that really helps me, I almost feel like I need to, shout it from the rooftops, and get other people to understand this, or to maybe hear my take, or something like that. And in reality, sometimes it's just for me, and it's something that I don't need to try to affect anybody else with. Effect, not affect,
Right.
but I can just, sometimes it might even be more valuable if I just keep it for me, not in a selfish way, but just that personal growth, or that little piece of transformation was only for me. And rather than, I guess now that I think about this, as I kind of talk through it, rather than me trying to affect somebody else with that directly, the fact that that's improved my self as a person can be the positive affect from that.
I agree.
And how I'll carry that forward.
Yeah.
And pay that forward.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that, having been married 53 years.
53 years. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's been good. It's been a wonderful marriage. But there's an occasional time when there's maybe something that I am aware of, not that I do consciously, but just something that has taken hold, that I'm proud of, or I'm happy about, and Heather and I share things back and forth easily. But there may be once in a while when I want to keep something to myself. It's just such a personal thing that I don't want even my wife to know.
Yeah.
Not that I'm hiding something from her, but just keeping it inside. Not having a need, like you said, to broadcast it. Yeah. So
that's interesting. So there are certain times that'll happen like that for me, and I might not tell my wife about it, but it's because we have 2 toddlers and we don't get to have conversations anymore.
Oh, you have blah, conversations.
Pretty much. So I guess my last question, that'll lead me to my last question. So as a man in his 80s, who's been married for 53 years, what advice would you have for a man in his 40s who's been married for almost 5?
There's a Tibetan monk expression that when I saw it first, I thought that there's a lot to that. It says, peace is not the absence of storm, but tranquility within the storm. Another way you might say it is this going to matter 10 years from now?
Right.
Am I going to come to 10 before I say something? I mean, but I just like that, the peace. You can have peace, but if you have the peace on a regular basis, you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. And you're going to react to it in a way that's potentially peaceful.
Okay. And so, last question. So I always like to give someone the opportunity, because I find anytime I have a conversation or something like this, and a lot of times I'll get 5 minutes down the road and I'll go, gosh, I wish they would have asked this, or I wish I would have said this. Is there anything that you think I should have asked in regard to hypnosis that you wanted to talk about today, or that you are going to wish you had said, or that you want to share that we haven't talked about?
Before we left to ride over today, Heather said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Great." I said, "Feeling relaxed and feeling comfortable." I think what I liked was nothing big that I felt we haven't covered, but I one really exciting client, and it was recent. This is another example of doing something that I just never thought possible before. So this is again 50-something-year-old woman, and then anyway, she had not a good upbringing, and as a result, as I've come to hear, and she confirmed it. I had this theory, but that the people who have extrasensory perceptions of any kind, you might have a energy person who can sit across a few feet away and tell you things about your body, just by sensing it. She's a person who does this with her mind, and she often connects with things, and then they may happen. Or, I mean, people would say she's kind of out there, but it's fascinating to me. But she's probably the most in that direction that I've worked with. And so she wanted to work on an issue, and the issue was anxiety. So we had one session, and then we had a second session. And near the end of that second session, she said something about, we were at the releasing stage of a lot of things. She had tons of things to release, and we were working on them piece by piece. And I just, something came to my mind, and I said, maybe we could release these all at once, not even knowing if that's possible, because usually you're doing them group by group or piece by piece. And I said, what about, all right, if we ask your subconscious mind about that? And she said, sure. So I asked the subconscious mind if it would be possible for it to help this woman release all the remaining stuff that was in her way. And she got a yes. So I just suggested that she do it in her own way. And before long, she said, it's all gone. And I was almost stunned, not realizing this might even have a chance of working, but it just said, let's give it a try. So it's such an exciting moment. One of probably the most exciting hypnotic moments I've had.
Yeah.
That now I know that, at least with one person, she didn't have to go through, wade through all these things that were holding her back and causing her anxiety. Her subconscious mind said, it's time, let's just do it. So anyway,
my takeaway from that is that you don't know unless you ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, there's always new ways, right? And I'm glad you shared that. Thank you. And thank you very much for making the trip today and for agreeing to do this. I hope your book does really well. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it. And yeah, I wish you all the best and all the success in your continued practice and the growth there. And I appreciate everything you shared today.
Well, thank you very much.
Let's go over those 4 R's one more time. So they were, let's see if I got it. So they were recognize.
That's right. You have to know what you're working with. You have to recognize the roots. Yeah.
Replace.
Well, before you replace, what about the roots? What are you going to do with them?
So I'm glad I asked. So recognize, remove. Yep. So recognize, remove, replace.
Yeah.
And then reinforce.
Right. Reinforce is the big one at the end. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope everyone got that. And where can people find you?
Well, my website is www.hypno-health.net.
Hypnohealth.net.
And so they've got a lot of things there. I have a free 30-minute recording that is potentially helpful to getting people into the hypnotic state, which they can then return to afterwards and work on things on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all free. And they can also buy my book there through Amazon if they want to.
Yep.
And then I've got the YouTube channel that is developing. I'm toying with the idea of maybe just doing some podcasts where I'll be just presenting on a particular theme, and a lot of little ones like that, So we'll see how.
Yep, and I would suggest you do that. If for no other reason, but just having the craft to work on. So for me, this was very much kind of an art project in a sense, as a creative, just wanting kind of a new medium that I felt like I was interested in getting good at, and I just, in my own network, I have so many such just kind of a vast pool of people, and I've had so many great conversations that I wish that other people could have listened to, and I felt like this was an opportunity to do that, and just some things that I've been through that I think I can, my story can kind of help people a little bit. So that was my motivation, and I feel like as long as you have a good intrinsic reason for doing it, like follow that idea, and you're never going to like the first few things you do. You're just not going to like them. But eventually you'll start to get the hang of it more and start to appreciate it more. So look forward to seeing that as well.
Sounds good.
And so the book is The Healing Power of Hypnosis,
right,
by Hugh Sadlier.
Right.
Available on Amazon, and it'll arrive at your house quick. I ordered mine. I think I had it in a couple of days. So, so that's one beautiful thing about Amazon, right? But again, Hugh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun just to chat about this.
Hey, what's up? Just one sec. This podcast is produced by myself, edited by Jens Reyes, and theme music is produced by The Archetype. If you like this episode, please subscribe and share and leave us a rating. This helps us more than I can even express and allows us to provide more value. Thank you very much. Peace, peace.